What's up? How's it going, Summoners? It is another new patch, and we've got another video covering it for you guys. My name is Tia, and I'm not wearing a hat, but you can't see me, so I could be wearing a hat. And I'll walk you through all of the changes for patch 11.10. We'll provide tier lists for all 5 roles, so make sure to stay tuned so you know who to pick and ban. Hit that sub button, and let's jump right into the video. Starting things off, we have skins! Yay! This patch we have some new ones. The Arcana skins. There are 4 new skins, including skins for Xerath, Camille, Tahm Kench, and Lucian. You should absolutely give these skins a look in the store, because they look pretty great. Next up though, we'll talk about game balance. First are rune nerfs. Phase Rush is getting nerfed this patch after proving to be too strong for a good portion of the season. The cooldown has been increased from 15 seconds flat to a scaling 30 to 10 second cooldown. The ranged and melee movement speed bonus has also been adjusted, lowering ranged champions bonus at level 1 from 25% move speed to 15%. Melee champions also got a nerf in the early game, going from 40% at level 1 to 30%. Since the values aren't any worse later into the game, this should mostly affect players during the laning phase. It'll either make trading more difficult, and also users won't be able to escape jungle ganks as easily as before. Now let's move on to the item buffs. First, let's talk about Riftmaker. It previously only gained stacks on damaging champions, but after the changes this patch, you also gain stacks for taking damage as well. I think this is a great change because it helps out melee champions a ton. Melee champs usually take a couple of hits before they even reach their target, so being at full power already means that there will be a noticeable increase in damage. An additional buff is that you now gain 3% damage amp per stack, but the max is now 9% instead of 10%. While the max damage has gone down by only 1%, you can practically consider it always maxed out now. Next is Abyssal Mask, which hasn't been nearly as popular as comparable items like Spirit Visage. The health has gone up from 350 to 400, damage amp potency from 10% to 15%, and damage amp duration from 4 to 5 seconds. Overall, the item is both stronger and easier to use. It definitely helps that it now provides an extra 50 HP. What tank doesn't want some extra tank stats? GUINSOO'S RAGEBLADE has gotten a pretty nice buff this patch as well. The cost has gone down from 2,800 to 2,600. This is a great buff for champions that love building it. 200 gold less on a mid-game item is huge. The chance that you'll have it finished in time for a big fight is pretty high after this change. Next, we have Gore Drinker. The healing has gone up from 25% AD plus 8% missing health to 25% AD plus 10% missing health. This is a small buff, but will nonetheless increase the amount of sustain champions gain from it. Although there were some heftier changes planned before, they've been scrapped and we have some simple ones in their place. By the way, here's our question of the day. As MSI has begun, which team are you rooting for? Personally, I'm rooting for C9, but historically, I'm well aware that NA hasn't done too well internationally, but let me know who you are rooting for in the comments below, and let's fight about it. Just kidding, back to the video. That'll cover the item buffs, so let's talk about the biggest change this patch, the jungle. In case you weren't aware, Riot has been trying to make adjustments to the jungle to make it a more forgiving role. This patch, we'll see whether or not Riot can tackle such an ambitious goal. Camp respawn timers have gone down from 2 minutes to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Also, the respawn warning has been shortened from 15 to 10 seconds. Overall, this means that junglers have more freedom in their jungle clear. Even if you have an extremely fast jungle clear speed, your income and experience are limited by how quickly camps can spawn. Now that the timer is increased, playing a champion that's a bit slower on their clears is much more forgiving. The lowered warning timer also makes it a bit harder for enemies to counter jungle you on reaction. Next, we have comeback experience. Large monsters and epic monsters now grant 50 experience per level below the average level of the game -1. In other words, if you're 2 levels behind the average level of the game, you'll gain 50 bonus XP, and if you're 3 levels behind, you gain 100. At the early stages of the game, 50 experience is huge. Reaching level 6 after a rough start should be more plausible, and you'll have less to worry about, and you don't have to be stuck at level 4 for the entire game. As the game progresses, 50 XP becomes a little less relevant. Next up, Summoner's Smite has received huge changes. First, the damage is now flat. You start with 450 damage, and this doubles to 900 after you finish your Smite quest. Unsealed Spellbook will apply the increase after swapping into Smite twice. Smite also breaks Scuttle Crab's shield before applying damage, meaning that even if your champion doesn't have crowd control, you can now quickly clear the neutral monster as long as you commit. Making the damage flat will make the roll less snowbally. You don't have to be worried about instantly losing Smite bites when underleveled now. The playing field is more even and comeback steals are much more plausible. The high flat damage also means that players should notice an increase in their clear speeds during the early to mid game. Next up, Omnivamp on jungle items has gone down from 10% to 8%, while Smite's percent max health healing went up from 10% to 15%. This makes champions a lot less reliant on their own abilities, as Smite already makes clearing the jungle so much more forgiving than before. Jungle monsters have also gotten some changes. Blue Sentinel, Red Brambleback, and Gromps have all had their attack damage reduced to 78 to 234. Mercwolf's damage has gone down from 42 to 156 to 35 to 105. The smaller Mercwolves from 16 to 59 to 10 to 30. Crimson Raptor's damage is down from 20 to 74 to 20 to 60. The small Raptor's damage down from 13 to 49 to 10 to 30. Big KRUG's damage has gone down from 80 to 303 to 78 to 234. Medium KRUG's damage has been decreased from 25 to 93 to 20 to 60, and the mini KRUG's from 17 to 63 to 13 to 39. Since Smite is getting buffed, some camps have had their health increased to slow down clear speeds. Blue Sentinel and Red Brambleback had their health increased from 1800 to 3150 to 1850 to 3238. Rift Scuttler's health is up from 1000 to 2066 to 1050 to 2170. Finally, because the spawn timers have gone up, the smaller camps in the jungle will provide more gold. Mini KRUG had their gold payout increased from 12 to 13. Mercwolf is up from 55 to 65. Gromp is up from 85 to 90, and Crimson Raptor from 35 to 45. We have a ridiculous amount of jungle changes, so I suggest that you guys check out ProGuides.com. There are a ton of coaches who are figuring out the jungle meta as we speak, and you can hit up one on our website if you want help. These changes are huge, and as a result, champion changes for junglers are going to be a bit lacking this patch. Before we head there though, we'll run through the top lane balance changes first. Beginning with the top lane, a change so many people have been waiting for, a Darius nerf. Darius E's cooldown has been increased from 24 to 12 seconds to 26 to 18 seconds. Overall, this will make Darius's late game much weaker than before. The increased cooldown means that kiting him will be a much stronger option than before. However, his laning hasn't been touched much and players will probably still struggle quite a bit against him. Overall, we do expect to see a decent drop in his win rate, but not a significant one for his ban rate. We'll drop Darius down to the S tier after this change and keep a watch on him. Kennen, on the other hand, received a nice little buff this patch. His W's 4th attack damage has gone up from 10 to 50 plus 20% AP to 20 to 60 plus 25% AP. The 10 flat damage increase will make his laning a lot more potent than before. Unfortunately, you can't dodge a basic attack unless you're playing Jax. This extra damage will stack up over the course of the laning phase, and Kennen should have a much easier time poking enemies down as a result. The increased AP ratio is nice, but overall, he won't gain much strength outside of the laning phase from it. We'll leave Kennen in the B tier even after this buff. Kayle also got buffed this patch. Her level 11 of flame damage has gone up from 20% AP to 25% AP, and her level 16 transcendence range has gone up from 50 to 100. The level 16 buff is huge. Extra attack range is a game-deciding factor, and players who manage to take games that late should be able to reap the benefits. Although we'll leave her in the B tier, there's a good chance she'll be pushed into the A tier soon. This patch, we have Set and Shen as our OP picks, followed by Lee Sin, Camille, Maokai, Poppy, Riven, Mordekaiser, Fiora, Urgot, Nocturne, Wukong, Jax, Gnar, Sylas, Malphite, Garen, and Darius in the S tier. There are a ton of solid top lane picks right now. Any of these champions can carry. Set and Shen continue to dominate after their buffs last patch, so make sure to take advantage of them before they see nerfs. Next up, we have the jungle. Like we mentioned earlier, not very much to talk about in terms of champion balance for the jungle. There are huge systems changes for junglers this patch, so it's pretty difficult for us to really know where things take off. every jungler will be impacted by what's going on this patch, and we'll make sure to keep you all updated in our mid-patch update. Our only shift on the tier list is that we've added Xin Zhao to the S tier. He's been doing very well recently, and it seems like most players were definitely sleeping on him. We also want to let you know we've added Rumble to the jungle tier list. We've placed him in the B tier. While he's popular, his win rate remains rather low in the jungle. He is good enough that he was actually picked at MSI, but it doesn't seem like solo queue players are doing too hot with him. We'll continue to keep an eye on him for now. Our OP picks are the same as our last mid-patch update. We have Elise, Morgana, and Lee Sin in the OP tier, followed by Kha'Zix, Evelynn, Nunu, Ivern, Fiddlesticks, Diana, Shaco, Zac, and Xin Zhao in the S tier. Next up, let's run through the mid lane. We've got a Galio nerf first. His W's cooldown has gone up from 18 to 16 to 18 seconds flat. His W magic damage shield has also gone down from 8 to 20% max health to 8 to 15% max health. Galio has been seeing a decent amount of play competitively internationally as well as in Tier 2 games. His win rates have consistently been very high, and while a lot of players don't think these nerfs are justified, the statistics say otherwise. At the end of the day though, this is a pretty harsh nerf. While I don't think the magic damage shield going down is a big deal, the increased W cooldown in the late game is. It's a very powerful ability, and with it on a longer cooldown, Galio will definitely feel weaker. We think he'll stay in the S tier for now, but we'll keep an eye on him. Next, we have Talon. As an incredible solo queue champion, Talon has been dominating high elo lobbies for quite some time now. His Q's bonus attack damage ratio has been reduced from 110% to 100%. This nerf should hopefully decrease his kill pressure and help open up the mid lane meta a bit. While Talon remains in the S tier, if we continue to see assassin nerfs, the mid lane meta is bound to see huge shifts in the near future. KATARINA has gotten a noticeable nerf this patch. Her movement speed has been reduced from 340 to 335. A lot of players won't take this nerf seriously. Yes, her damage and mobility are still very good, but the loss of 5 movement speed is a quality of life nerf that makes a ton of differences, especially if you're melee. She's now outrun by roughly 63 champions now. The difference between 340 and 335 is that you go from being above average to very average in terms of speed. Being faster than your opponent is something that we often take for granted. If you're trying to land the killing blow on an enemy, it's extremely frustrating when you can't get in range for that last E or Q. Conversely, it also means that if you're caught out in the open, you're much more likely to get run down and forced to take a bad fight when you're playing KATARINA. We'll move her down to the S tier after this nerf. That said, we have one final mention. If you're gold or below, you should consider Diana as an OP pick. She's straightforward and deals plenty of damage. The fact that Jungle Diana is also a prevalent pick adds more value, but regardless, she wins a ton of games in mid and low elo. Our OP picks for the mid lane are Zed and Yasuo, followed by Pantheon, Victor, Talon, Annie, Galio, Fizz, Echo, Kiana, Viego, Diana, Ahri, Yone, LeBlanc, Kassadin, Sylas, Anivia, Vladimir, and KATARINA in the S tier. That's it for the mid lane, so we have the bot lane next. And TBH, the bot lane is pretty dry this patch, but it's not completely empty. Jinx has been OP for quite some time now, and she's received a nerf this patch. Not a bug fix, but a real nerf. Her base armor has gone down from 28 to 26, and her R's execute damage against epic monsters is now capped at 800. The armor nerf is a good one since most marksmen deal physical damage. There's less effective health for her to work with, and this is especially going to be noticeable when Jinx is laning with an enchanter that relies on healing. Nerfing her R was unexpected, but it should take away some excess power, and junglers should, in theory, never lose a smite fight against her rocket. Let's be real though, it's still gonna happen. Jinx remains in the OP tier after this change. Our OP bot lane picks are Jinx and Samira, followed by Tristana, Kai'Sa, Ezreal, Ashe, Vayne, Jhin, Seraphine, Swain, and Sivir in the S tier. With so few balance changes, the meta likely won't budge very much. Finally, we have my favorite, support changes. While bot lane changes weren't very numerous, we have a healthy number of support changes. This is a good patch for support players, yay! As they typically see less changes than other roles. Thresh is first on the list because he's been OP for quite some time. His base health has gone down from 561 to 530, while his HP per level is up from 93 to 95. And no, this won't push him out of the OP tier. He'll be a bit squishier and you'll have a better chance at taking an early fight against him, but his incredible utility still make him a solid pick. Bard was also nerfed. The base damage on his passive has gone down from 40 to 30. 10 less damage on each passive proc means that he won't be able to bully out enemies as hard. In spite of this, we'll leave Bard in the S tier as well. Like Thresh, he's still a solid pick, just weaker than before. Next up, Lux has received a solid buff to her E. Of course, she'll end up as a stronger mid laner as well. Her E's damage has gone up from 60 to 240, plus 60% AP to 60 to 260, plus 65% AP. A 20 damage increase on her E is a lot. It's already such a strong ability, and the fact that more damage is being added to an already powerful zoning tool is great news for Lux players. While we might unfortunately see more support Lux players build full AP, Lux will end up stronger regardless of what build she goes. This buff won't be enough to push her up a tier, however. Next, we have a buff for Zyra. Yes! She's been underperforming heavily in high elo, and this buff should help her out. Her passive, Vine Lasher Slow, has gone up from 25% to 30%. In addition, her W's cooldown went down from 20 to 12 to 18 to 10. This decreased cooldown means that Zyra should be able to trade effectively much more often. In the late game, the reduced cooldown means that she'll almost always have a plant available. Zyra is up to the A tier after this change. Finally, we have a buff for Yuumi. Her Q's base damage has gone up from 40 to 190 to 50 to 200, while her Q's base empowered damage is up from 45 to 245 to 60 to 260. The current support meta features aggressive supports that can often force fights that will full 2-0 a player. Considering that Yuumi is rather fragile and laning with her very early can feel like a 1v2, I think these buffs are needed. There's a ton of pressure that a marksman has to suffer early when laning with Yuumi, and some extra damage should both lighten the load and make her a more rewarding pick in the mid to late game. This buff won't be enough to move her around the list though, so we'll leave her placement untouched. Our OP picks for supports are still Leona, Thresh, Senna, and Lulu, followed by Bard, Morgana, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, and Maokai in the S tier. That'll wrap up our patch rundown for patch 11.10. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you had any thoughts, feel free to share them in the comments down below. You should also feel free to check out the description for a link to join our Discord. It's great to have you, because, we make friends and talk about video games. Regardless, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and that you win your games this patch. Yeah, let's get to Diamond, guys. Or if you guys are just better than me and then you didn't go and get Challenge Or. I believe in you all. Okay, goodbye.